My name is Clara, and I'm 33 years old. After a decade of grinding away, I finally bought my dream condo. The moment I held those keys, a tangible weight of accomplishment in my palm was the single most triumphant feeling of my entire life. I poured weeks into planning the perfect housewarming party, down to the last detail, cooking all the dishes my family claimed to love. But as the clock on my new mantle ticked past 6, then 7, a silent, empty apartment was my only guest. No one arrived, not my parents, not my brother, not a soul. The reason why, a truth I uncovered later that same night, shattered my world and then slowly rebuilt it into something entirely new. If you're listening to this, I'd love for you to drop a comment letting me know where you're from. And please, hit that like button and subscribe to join me on what turned out to be an unexpected journey of self-discovery. I grew up in a quiet, middle-class neighborhood just east of Seattle. Our house was a standard split-level, comfortable but unremarkable, with a small, perpetually damp backyard where my father would attempt to barbecue on the rare sunny weekends. To anyone driving by, we must have seemed like the quintessential American family: a father, a mother, a daughter, and a son. But behind the closed doors, the scales of affection and attention were permanently tipped. My brother Leo, 4 years my junior, was the anointed one, the golden child. He displayed a startling knack for numbers early on, a talent that had my parents whispering the word genius before he could even tie his own shoes. While I was dutifully working my way through pre-algebra, Leo was toying with abstract mathematical concepts that left my parents looking on with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. My father, Robert, a civil engineer, saw his own reflection in Leo but magnified. This was his legacy, the son who would not just follow in his professional footsteps, but sprint past them. As for me, I was just Clara, the older sister, the reliable one who brought home good grades, but never truly brilliant ones. The one who put in the effort, but never seemed to generate the same effortless praise that Leo received for simply existing. Every single parent-teacher conference followed the same script. Clara is a pleasure to have in class, doing very well. Then a pause, a lean-in from my dad. But let me tell you what Leo is doing in his grade. My mother, Susan, had a softer touch than my father, but she was a loyal lieutenant in his army of priorities. She worked part-time as a receptionist at a clinic, but her real full-time job was managing the household and cultivating Leo's burgeoning intellect. On the rare occasions when my dad wasn't home, she might murmur a quiet compliment about a drawing I'd done or a story I'd written. But these moments felt like secrets, always ending with a hushed, "Let's not tell your father I'm encouraging these hobbies." The disparity was baked into our family culture. When I graduated high school with honors, I received a firm good job and a handshake from my dad. When Leo won the state math Olympiad, it was a celebratory dinner at a waterfront steakhouse and a top-of-the-line laptop. My achievements were a baseline expectation. His were milestones worthy of a parade. The only person in my orbit who seemed to see me in full color was my maternal grandmother, Eleanor. She lived a 45-minute drive away in a small cottage filled with books and the scent of lavender. Visits to her home were my refuge. Unlike my parents, she'd ask to see my sketchbook, listen intently to my rambling stories, and she was the one who told me my value wasn't a commodity to be measured against my brother's. "Your light shines differently than his, my dear," she would say, her hand on my arm. "That doesn't make it any less bright." It was Grandma Eleanor who pushed me to fill out scholarship applications when it became painfully clear that my parents' college fund was unofficially earmarked for Leo. I ended up securing enough scholarships to attend university without their financial help. The day I moved into my dorm was the first time I breathed air that felt entirely my own. I was resolved to build a life on my own terms, a life where I wasn't in a constant, unspoken competition for love and approval. I chose to major in interior design, a field that allowed me to blend my artistic side with a practical application. My parents dismissed it as a fluffy degree, but for the first time, their skepticism didn't sting. It was fuel. I took on unpaid internships every summer, meticulously building a portfolio and a network of contacts. After graduation, I secured a junior position at a boutique design firm in Seattle. The starting salary was barely enough to cover rent, but I embraced a frugal lifestyle, sharing a cramped apartment with 2 other girls and funneling every spare dollar into a savings account. Over the next decade, I climbed the ladder, from assistant to junior designer to a senior designer with my own roster of clients. All the while, Leo drifted. He bounced from one prestigious graduate program to another, funded by my parents, never quite landing on a career. He was undeniably brilliant, but he lacked direction, always captivated by the next abstract problem rather than the task of building a sustainable life for himself. I, on the other hand, had a laser focus. From my very first shared apartment, I nurtured a specific dream, owning my own place. It wasn't just about property. It was about a specific vision. I pictured a pre-war condo in Queen Anne, a building with history, high ceilings, and original moldings. I wanted to be close enough to the waterfront for morning jogs, but also within walking distance of the little independent galleries and cafes that I loved. Every single month, without fail, I transferred a portion of my paycheck into a high-yield savings account I'd nicknamed the Condo Fund. When friends tried to tempt me with European vacations or weekend shopping sprees, I politely declined. This goal was more than just a financial milestone. It was about carving out a space in the world that was unequivocally mine, a testament to my own hard work and my own taste. By the time I turned 33, I had amassed a significant down payment. I was finally ready. The hunt for the perfect condo took a grueling 6 months. I toured dozens of sterile, soulless new builds and poorly flipped units where all the original charm had been stripped away and replaced with cheap gray laminate. Many were just laughably out of my price range. I was on the verge of compromising, of settling, when my real estate agent called, her voice buzzing with an energy I hadn't heard before. "It just hit the market this morning," she said. 2-bedroom in a 1920s brick building on the south slope of Queen Anne. Original hardwoods, crown molding, even a little Juliet balcony. The owner was an elderly woman who lived there for 50 years. It's a time capsule in the best way. I saw it that afternoon. As soon as I stepped inside, I knew. The living room was bathed in the soft gray light of the Pacific Northwest, filtered through tall, elegant windows. The kitchen was modest, but had been thoughtfully updated with quality appliances. The primary bedroom was spacious enough for the queen bed and the antique cherry wood dresser I had inherited from Grandma Eleanor. The smaller second bedroom would be a perfect home office and studio. More than anything, it just felt right. I could see my life unfolding within those walls, my art on the walls, my books filling shelves I hadn't even built yet. This wasn't just an asset. It was the stage for the rest of my life. The asking price was at the absolute peak of my budget, and there were already multiple offers. That night, I wrote a heartfelt letter to the seller, explaining how much the home meant to me, and submitted an offer slightly above asking. After 2 agonizing days of silence, my agent called with the news. My offer had been accepted. The mortgage process was a fresh hell. As a self-employed individual, I had to produce a mountain of paperwork. There were several moments I was sure the whole deal would collapse under the weight of underwriting scrutiny, but finally, after what felt like an eternity of inspections and signatures, I was at the closing table. Signing document after document, I felt a dizzying mix of terror and pure exhilaration. The debt was staggering, but when the seller's agent slid the old-fashioned brass keys across the table, tears sprang to my eyes. These weren't just keys to a condo. They were the keys to my independence, to a life I had built from the ground up, on my own terms. The first night, I slept on an air mattress on the floor, my furniture still in transit. I didn't care. I roamed from room to room in the dark, my hand trailing along the walls, imagining colors, textures, and memories yet to be made. For the very first time, I felt I had created something tangible that my family couldn't overlook or diminish. The next month was a blur of joyful labor. I painted the living room a deep, moody teal that made the original woodwork pop. I installed custom floating shelves in the office, filling them with my design books and inspirational objects. My one big splurge was a plush, comfortable sectional sofa in a rich cognac leather that became the anchor of the living room. Every choice was deliberate, a brushstroke in the portrait of the home I was creating. The dining area was centered around a vintage teak table I'd found and refinished myself. Surrounded by a mismatched set of mid-century chairs I'd painstakingly collected over the years, the bedroom became my sanctuary, filled with layered textiles and soft, warm lighting. As the last piece fell into place, I knew it was time. I wanted to share it with my family. Despite our fraught history, a part of me still craved their approval. I wanted them to see what I had built, to finally acknowledge that my fluffy career path had led to something real and beautiful. I planned the housewarming party with the same meticulous care I gave my clients. The date was set for a Saturday evening in mid-June, hoping for a rare, perfect Seattle evening where guests could enjoy the small balcony. I designed and mailed elegant formal invitations 3 weeks out. The guest list was small and intimate. My parents, Leo, and his girlfriend Megan, Grandma Eleanor, a few cousins, and a handful of my closest friends from work. A week before the party, I sent a group text to confirm. To my delight, everyone replied with enthusiastic confirmations. Even my father, who usually grumbled about social events, said he was looking forward to seeing the place. I designed the menu as a tapestry of their favorites. My father's preferred single malt scotch would be on the bar. I'd make the baked salmon with dill sauce that my mother loved. For Leo, I planned to make the one dessert he could never resist from our childhood, brownies with mint chocolate chip ice cream. And for Grandma Eleanor, the classic cucumber and cream cheese tea sandwiches she used to make for me. The day before the party was a frenzy of activity. I cleaned every surface until the apartment shone. I arranged fresh peonies in vases. I prepped as much of the food as I could. That night, I barely slept, buzzing with a nervous, hopeful energy. After a lifetime of feeling like an afterthought, I was finally going to have my moment in the sun. I would show my family that I had made something of myself, something worthy of their praise. I was up at 6 on the morning of the party, too jittery with anticipation to stay in bed. The morning light streamed through the windows, casting a golden hue that felt like a good omen. I sipped my coffee on the balcony, running through my final checklist. By 9 a.m., I was in full prep mode, arranging appetizers on serving platters and setting out candles to be lit just before everyone arrived. I wanted absolute perfection. Around noon, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Grandma Eleanor. "So sorry, sweetheart. My old back is acting up something fierce today. Don't think I can manage the drive. Call me tomorrow and tell me everything. Love you." a sharp pang of disappointment hit me. Grandma Eleanor was the one person I most wanted to share this with. But at 84, her health was unpredictable, and I understood. I texted back my love and promised to call her with a full report. That minor setback aside, I pressed on. I took a long shower, styled my hair, and put on a new dress I'd bought for the occasion, a forest green wrap dress that made me feel both elegant and powerful. By 5:30 p.m., everything was perfect. The apartment looked like it was staged for a magazine shoot. The food was ready, the wine was chilled, and a curated playlist of soft jazz was playing in the background. I lit the candles, took a deep breath, and waited for the doorbell to ring. 6 o'clock came and went. I wasn't worried yet. People are often fashionably late. I glanced at my phone. No missed calls or texts. By 6:30, a knot of anxiety began to tighten in my stomach. I sent a light-hearted group text to my family. Everything's ready. The scotch is poured. Can't wait to see you all. Silence. No one responded. At 7 o'clock, the beautiful salmon had been sitting out too long, and I had to move it back to the oven on low heat. I tried calling my mother's cell, but it went directly to voicemail. I tried my father. Same result. Finally, I called Leo. It rang and rang, then clicked to voicemail. By 7:30, I was frantically cycling through their numbers, a cold dread seeping into my bones. The ice in the bucket was a sad pool of water. The perfectly chilled Sauvignon Blanc was now lukewarm. I sat on my beautiful new leather sofa, my party dress feeling like a costume, trying to rationalize. There must have been an accident, some family emergency that prevented all of them from even sending a single text. At 8 o'clock, the fantasy shattered. The truth landed with a quiet, brutal finality. No one was coming. Not one person from my family who had RSVP'd yes had shown up or had the basic decency to call. I was alone in my perfectly curated apartment, surrounded by food for 15, dressed up with nowhere to go. The shock curdled into a deep, hollow hurt, which then ignited into white-hot anger. They had all confirmed. What could possibly have happened? I picked up my phone again, but this time, my thumb instinctively opened Instagram. I started scrolling, and that's when I saw it. A post from Megan, Leo's girlfriend, uploaded just an hour ago. The caption read, "Celebrating Leo's amazing new place." The photo was a group of people, my people, raising champagne glasses in a toast. In the center, my parents were beaming, their arms around Leo, bursting with pride. Another photo in the carousel showed Leo cutting a "Congratulations on your new home" cake. A third was a panoramic shot of a sleek, ultra-modern condo with floor-to-ceiling windows and a breathtaking view of the city skyline. I swiped through the photos, my breath catching in my throat. I recognized more faces. My cousins, the same ones who had told me they were so excited for my party. There were even two of my colleagues who had given me vague excuses about prior commitments. The reality crashed down on me, and I felt physically sick. My brother had also bought a condo. He had scheduled his housewarming for the exact same day, the exact same time as mine, and every single person had chosen to go to his party. Not only had they chosen him, but they hadn't even bothered to tell me. I frantically searched for more clues, piecing together the story from comments and tags. Leo had apparently closed on a luxury unit in a new downtown high-rise. From the gushing comments, I gathered my parents had helped him with a substantial down payment. The timing couldn't be a coincidence. Leo knew about my housewarming. He had to have. He deliberately scheduled his on the same day, manufacturing a loyalty test for our entire social circle, and they had all chosen him unanimously. The realization felt like a physical blow. My phone clattered onto the sofa cushions. I stumbled to my feet, a wild energy surging through me. I had to do something, anything, to release the storm of betrayal and humiliation building inside. My hands were shaking as I walked into the kitchen. The food I had so lovingly prepared sat there, a monument to my foolish hope. The salmon I'd spent a fortune on. The homemade dip my mother always raved about. The special brownies I'd made just for Leo, who would now never taste them. In a sudden, violent surge of rage, I grabbed the platter of salmon and hurled it into the trash can. The dip followed, then the salad, then the artfully arranged cheese board. Each thud and splash was a punctuation mark on my fury. Tears I hadn't realized I was holding back began to stream down my face, blurring my vision as I systematically destroyed every trace of my naive anticipation. How could I have been so stupid? After all these years, how could I have possibly believed that this time would be different? That this achievement, one I had accomplished entirely on my own, would finally be enough to earn their respect? The most agonizing part wasn't even that they chose his party. It was the silence. They had let me plan and cook and wait and hope, all while knowing they had no intention of showing up. The calculated cruelty of it was what truly broke me. I thought of all the times my needs had been eclipsed by his. Family trips planned around his competitions, dinners dominated by his accomplishments, the college fund that had been quietly funneled his way. But this was a new level of disregard. This wasn't just prioritizing him. This was a deliberate act of exclusion, a collective decision by my entire family to invalidate me on what should have been one of the proudest days of my life. I slid down the kitchen cabinets until I was a crumpled heap on the floor, my new dress a wrinkled mess, and I let out a gut-wrenching sob that felt like it had been stored up for a lifetime. It was the sound of every second-place finish, every good job that felt like a consolation prize, every ounce of effort I had ever expended for an approval that was never coming. I don't know how long I lay there, long enough for the apartment to grow dark around me, for my throat to feel raw and my eyes to swell shut. Eventually, the storm of tears passed, leaving behind a cold, hollow calm. I pushed myself up from the floor, walked into the living room, and flipped off all the lights. In the darkness, I sat on my expensive new sofa and stared out at the glittering city lights. The apartment that had felt like a triumph just hours before now felt like a mausoleum for my own self-deception. I had believed that this condo, this symbol of my success, would finally change the family narrative. I had been so wrong. As I sat there in the quiet dark, a new feeling began to crystallize in the pit of my stomach, pushing aside the hurt and anger. It was a quiet, unshakable resolve. This place was still mine. I had earned it. My family's rejection, as painful as it was, could not take that away. I reached for the lamp switch, ready to face my empty, beautiful home with new eyes. As the soft light filled the room, my phone screen lit up on the cushion beside me. It was a text message from my mother. "We need to talk, now." Not, "I'm so sorry we missed your party." Not, "There's been a terrible misunderstanding," just a summons, a demand, as if I were the one in the wrong. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. For the first time in my 33 years, I felt no compulsion to immediately answer my mother's call. Whatever they had to say, it could wait. Tonight, my only responsibility was to myself. I woke the next morning feeling like I'd gone 10 rounds in a boxing match. My eyes were puffy and my head throbbed, but beneath the physical misery was a strange and unfamiliar sense of clarity. I had 9 missed calls, 4 from my mother, 3 from my father, and 2 from an unknown number, and a string of texts, all variations of "call me immediately" or we have to discuss last night." Not a single one contained the word sorry. As I was spooning coffee grounds into the filter, my phone rang again. This time the screen showed Grandma Eleanor. She was the one person I would answer. "Clara, sweetheart," her voice was warm but laced with concern. "I just heard what happened. I am so sorry." "You knew?" I asked, my own voice raspy. "No, not until your mother called me this morning in a panic." She tried to spin some story about a misunderstanding with the dates. I let out a short, bitter laugh. "There was no misunderstanding, Grandma. Leo planned his party on the same day as mine, on purpose, and they all went." There was a heavy pause on the line. "I figured as much," she said, her voice dropping. It had the ring of a planned operation. "Did she happen to mention they helped Leo buy his place, after telling you for years that you needed to be self-sufficient?" "No. She conveniently left that part out," I said, the fresh sting of that injustice rising. Grandma Eleanor sighed, a sound heavy with decades of observation. For my whole life, I had swallowed my hurt, retreating into quiet resentment rather than facing the conflict head-on. "What would you do if you were me?" I asked her, my voice barely a whisper. Her reply was immediate and firm. "I would drive over there for their Sunday breakfast. That's when they'll all be there, Leo included. And I would walk in with your head held high and tell them, calmly and clearly, exactly how their actions made you feel. Then, my dear, you set some boundaries that are long overdue." Her words were like a steel rod slipped into my spine. I spent the rest of the day cleaning up the wreckage of my non-party and mentally rehearsing my speech. By Sunday morning, I was ready. I dressed simply in jeans and a crisp white shirt, not to impress them, but to feel grounded and confident in my own skin. The 30-minute drive to my parents' house was a silent meditation. As I pulled into the familiar driveway, I saw my parents' cars alongside Leo's flashy new sports car, a recent gift from them, I was sure. Perfect. The entire cast was assembled. I didn't knock. I used my old key, walked straight in, and found them all gathered around the dining room table, amidst the remnants of waffles and bacon. Leo and Megan were on one side, my parents on the other. They all looked up, startled as I entered. "Clara," my mother started, rising from her chair, her face a mask of feigned concern. "We've been trying to reach you. We were so worried." I remained standing in the doorway, my arms crossed, making it clear I wasn't joining their cozy family meal. "I was busy," I said, my voice cool and even. I was dealing with the aftermath of preparing a dinner party for 15 people who chose not to show up or call. My father cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably. "Now, listen, there was a major miscommunication about the events." "A miscommunication?" I repeated, letting the word hang in the air. "I sent out invitations a month ago. You all RSVP'd yes. Not a single person sent a text." "That's not a miscommunication, Dad. That's a choice." Leo, looking more annoyed than remorseful, chimed in. "It's not that big of a deal, Clara. It was just a party." The casual dismissal sent a jolt of anger through me. "It's never just a party with you, Leo. It's a lifelong pattern. My entire life, I have been the backup plan, the afterthought, the one who is expected to understand when I'm pushed aside for you. And I'm done understanding." "That's not fair," my mother protested weakly. "We love you both." "No, you don't," I said, the simple truth landing without drama. "Not equally. You never have. And you know what? Most of the time I can live with that. I've had to. I've built my entire life so I wouldn't need your approval. But what you all did on Saturday was deliberately cruel, and I will not pretend it was anything else." My father's face hardened into his familiar authoritarian mask. "You're being overly dramatic." Leo closing on his condo was a huge milestone. He needed our support. Why? I challenged, my voice rising slightly. Because you paid for it? Because his achievement is really your achievement? My mother looked stunned. How did you? Instagram, I cut her off. The whole world can see it. It's a $1 million luxury condo he could never afford on his part-time research gig. You handed it to him. Leo shot up from his chair, scraping it loudly against the wood floor. You're just jealous. You've always been competing with me, always trying to one-up me. I actually laughed, a real, genuine laugh at the absurdity of his perspective. Leo, I have never competed with you. I couldn't. The game has been rigged from the start. You were always going to win. The favoritism was a pre-existing condition. That's enough, my father snapped. You will not come into this house and attack your brother because your feelings are hurt. I'm not attacking him, I said, turning my gaze back to my parents. I'm stating a fact. I bought my condo by myself. Every single dollar of the down payment came from money I saved over 10 years. I found it. I negotiated for it. I secured the mortgage for it. It might not be as fancy as the one you bought, Leo, but it is mine in a way his will never be his. I looked directly at my brother. And you knew exactly what you were doing. You knew everyone would pick you, they always do. You could have chosen any other day, but you wanted to make sure my accomplishment was completely eclipsed, again. For the first time, a flicker of shame crossed his face. He glanced at Megan, who was now staring at her empty plate as if it held the secrets of the universe. I didn't think it would be such a big deal, he mumbled, the excuse sounding weak even to his own ears. My mother stood and approached me, her hands outstretched. Clara, we're sorry if your feelings were hurt. That was never our intention. We can come over and see your condo today if you'd like. I took a step back, out of her reach. Number, I don't want a pity visit born from guilt. The time for you to see it was Saturday. Today is about me letting you know that things are changing. I am done showing up for this family and hoping to be thrown a scrap of attention. I'm done pretending it doesn't wound me every time you treat me like I am less than. What are you saying? My father asked, a hint of alarm finally entering his voice. I'm saying I'm done. I'm setting a boundary. I will still be in this family, but it will be on my terms. No more last-minute cancellations where I'm the one who has to adjust. No more begging for the kind of support that you give him freely, the kind of support that should be unconditional. Just as I finished, the front door opened, and in walked Grandma Eleanor, leaning on her cane but with a warrior's resolve in her eyes. I thought I might find you all here, she said, giving me a small, approving nod. Mom, now is not a good time, my mother began, but my grandmother cut her off with a wave of her hand. Now is the perfect time. I have watched this dynamic play out for 30 years, and I have enabled it with my silence. Not anymore. She fixed her gaze on my parents. You have 2 children, 2, and they both have accomplishments worthy of celebration. Both of them deserve your love. My father opened his mouth to protest, but she silenced him with a look. Robert, you have always favored Leo because you see yourself in him. But have you ever stopped to notice that while Clara has built a career and bought her own home, your son, at 29, is still entirely dependent on you? Have you considered that your support hasn't actually done him any favors? Leo flushed a deep red, but Grandma Eleanor wasn't done. And Susan, you've gone along with it all because it was easier than challenging your husband. I raised you to be stronger than that. A heavy silence filled the room. I took a deep breath, feeling a sense of closure. I'm leaving now. I've said what I came to say. The rest is up to you. As I turned to go, my mother's voice, small and strained, called after me, "Clara, wait. Please, can we fix this?" I paused at the door. "You can call me next week. If you're ready to have an actual honest conversation about how things have been and how they need to be, I'll listen. But if you're just going to make excuses or tell me I'm overreacting, then don't bother." With that, I walked out into the cool morning air, Grandma Eleanor following close behind. For the first time in my life, I hadn't backed down. It was terrifying, and it was liberating. In the weeks that followed, an emotional whiplash became my new normal. Some days I felt invincible, empowered by finally speaking my truth. Other days, a wave of doubt would wash over me, the lifelong habit of self-blame whispering that I had gone too far, that I'd torched the very bridges I secretly wanted to cross. But through it all, a steady, quiet sense of self-respect began to take root, something I'd never allowed myself to feel before. My mother's texts were a chaotic mix of defensiveness, "We never intended to hurt you," and emotional manipulation, "Your father is very upset." Leo sent a single, infuriating text, "Sorry if you felt bad," the classic non-apology that framed my pain as a perception problem. I didn't reply. I needed space. I poured my energy into my home, hanging art, planting a small herb garden on my balcony, and hosting small dinners for friends who valued me for me, not for my rank in a family hierarchy. About 10 days after the confrontation, a thick, cream-colored envelope arrived. It was a handwritten letter from my father. This was so out of character, I stared at his precise architectural script on the front for a full minute before opening it. Inside were 3 pages. He didn't offer a direct apology for the housewarming fiasco, but he did something more shocking. He acknowledged the truth. He wrote that he had always been harder on me, that he'd taken my independence for granted and used it as an excuse to pour more resources into Leo. He admitted he admired what I had accomplished on my own and asked if he could see my condo. It wasn't perfect, but it was a crack in the fortress. I called him and arranged for him to come over the following Saturday. Just him. He was awkward at first, standing stiffly in my living room. But as I gave him a tour, pointing out the original plasterwork and explaining my design choices, he started to relax. He asked intelligent questions, examining the joinery on my refinished table with a professional's eye. When I showed him my home office, he stood there for a long moment, looking at the organized chaos of my projects and books. "You've done well, Clara," he said, his voice thick with an unfamiliar emotion. "Really well. This place, it's you." It was the most direct praise he'd ever given me. We sat on the balcony with coffee, and for the first time, we talked like 2 adults. He voiced his worries about Leo, admitting that maybe he and my mother had made things too easy for him. "We thought we were helping," he said, staring out at the view. "But maybe we just made him weak." My mother took longer. When she finally called, she led with, "Your father says your apartment is very nice." "It is," I confirmed, giving no ground. After a long pause, she asked if we could have lunch. We met at a neutral cafe. She apologized almost immediately, though she still tried to frame the party as a scheduling error. But then she surprised me. "Your grandmother read me the riot act," she confessed, her eyes welling up. "She said I've been a coward, that I failed you as a mother. And the worst part is, she's right. I always knew it wasn't fair. I told myself you were just stronger, that you didn't need us like Leo did. But that was an excuse. The dam broke, and she wept. I'm so sorry, Clara. You deserved so much better from all of us. It was the validation I had craved for decades, but I was cautious. I appreciate that, Mom. I really do. But things need to actually change." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I know. We told Leo he has to start paying his own mortgage. We're not covering it anymore. He was furious, but it's time. Leo was the last holdout. He avoided me for a month. When we finally saw each other at a family event, he was icily polite. I pulled him aside. "Are we going to talk about this?" He shrugged. "What's there to talk about? You had a meltdown and turned everyone against me." I shook my head, realizing he truly saw himself as the victim. "This isn't about one party, Leo. This is about you deliberately scheduling your event on top of mine because you knew you would win. It's about you never having to work for anything." He started to protest, but I pressed on. "Tell me the truth. Did you know about my party when you planned yours?" He hesitated, then gave a tiny, reluctant nod. "Megan saw your invitation. She thought it would be more efficient for people." "Efficient?" I repeated, my eyebrow raised. "Fine," he finally admitted, his eyes on the floor. "We knew people would probably choose my place. We just didn't think you'd get so upset. Because you never have to think about how your actions affect me," I said, my voice soft now. "But that's over, Leo. I'm not playing the part of the gracious loser anymore." He looked up, and for the first time, I think he actually saw me as a person, not just his sister. "I don't know how to do this differently," he said honestly. "Neither do I admitted. "But we could try to figure it out. It's been a year since that weekend. A year of drawing lines, rebuilding bridges, and redefining my entire world. My relationship with my family is not perfect, but it is honest. My father now calls to ask for my opinion on things. My mother and I have a weekly yoga date. Leo and I are building a tentative friendship based on who we are now, not the roles we were assigned as children. The most profound change, however, has been within me. That constant gnawing need for their validation has quieted. I started therapy. I got a major promotion at work. I began to understand that my worth was inherent, not something to be earned through accolades or approval. 3 months ago, I had another housewarming party. This time, the guest list was my choice. My real friends, my supportive cousins, and of course, Grandma Eleanor, who held court from my most comfortable armchair. My parents came and they were just guests, celebrating me without comparison. As the last person left, I stood in my living room, looking at the happy mess of empty glasses and cake crumbs, and I felt a sense of peace that was deeper than the triumph I'd felt a year before. This was what I'd wanted all along, not just a home of my own, but a life of my own, filled with people who saw me and loved me for exactly who I am. The painful rejection that night turned out to be the greatest gift I ever received. It forced me to confront a lifetime of believing I was second best and to finally build a home within myself that no one could take away. The condo that was meant to prove my worth to others became the space where I finally learned my worth was never in question to begin with. What about you? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with people you love? Or has a painful moment ever turned into an unexpected catalyst for growth? I would genuinely love to read your stories in the comments below. And if my journey resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more stories about finding our own way. Thank you for listening, and remember, the most important homes we build are the ones within ourselves.